everyone, and welcome back to the Promotion on a Budget podcast. This week we are over Zoom because Josh has gone home for Christmas. This is our first one over Zoom, so it's going to be a different experience for us and a different experience for you guys, but I'm sure we can still bring you top quality content as we always do over here on POAB. But Josh, how are you feeling today, mate?
I'm doing all right, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, buzzing, mate. Norwich still top of the league, so yeah, buzzing.
Didn't take you long, did it? Did not take you long to make
I'm not going to stop mentioning it until we fall from the top.
that one at all. Realistically, considering there's football seemingly every single day at the minute, no one can really complain, can they?
Exactly. We're loving it. You've missed the opportunity there.
Loving it like that? Is that what you wanted?
Yeah, that's what I wanted. Because
okay.
Anyway, we'll carry on. Anyway, Josh, we're gonna go into straight into midweek's games from last week.
Yeah, let's hit it. Start of December. Lovely stuff.
Yeah, so this would have been looking back on it, the 1st of December. So we're gonna pick two games from each day. So two from Tuesday that we're gonna just have a quick look at and see what happened in those, the big results.
So should we go I pick one, you pick one? Should we go with that?
Yeah. So I've picked Cardiff Huddersfield.
Okay, and for the other Tuesday game, I think the obvious choice is Bournemouth Preston.
All right, yeah, we'll start with Cardiff Huddersfield then. And I think the big talking point for that one for me is Kiefer Moore. He's got a brace here, and he's also carried it on through in the next game as well. He scored again. But Kiefer Moore at the minute is really proving to be a very top quality championship striker and really does suit Cardiff style of play. Obviously, we know Cardiff is sort of a Brexit style team, so to speak, where they, big man up top, get the crosses in, and they'll go from there. And Kiefer Moore really does epitomise that. He's 6'6", I believe he is. He can, in the air, he's a threat. He's taller than most defenders in this league. And he really is fitting into the plans at Cardiff.
He's a very solid player. I don't think there's anyone that has seen him play that can deny that. He's clearly hit his goal scoring vein of form. He seems to be doing what all strikers ultimately strive to do, which is deliver and score goals. He's made a massive impact to this Huddersfield. What am I talking about? Cardiff side that have obviously then gone and put 3 past Huddersfield. That's not the first time in the last week that Cardiff have scored 3 or more goals in a game. Obviously, that was them doing 7 goals in 2 games after their 4-0 win at the weekend prior. So looking at things in kind of retrospect of everything, a striker who's delivering, scoring goals, getting on the ball and being productive with the ball is at the forefront of any team. That's what everyone loves to have in their own outfit. And obviously he was absolutely
he was instrumental,
at the pinnacle, like you said. Yeah. Oh, definitely.
And for Cardiff as well, they beat Luton 4-0 at the weekend previous to that.
It was.
And they've now gone and beaten Huddersfield 3-0. That's 7 goals in 2 games and 0 conceded. We're obviously seeing Cardiff as a side that maybe won't ship in as many goals, but won't score as many. But now they're really starting to prove that they can also go forward and score a lot of goals. And that's going to be the sort of thing that brings them up into the playoffs or even into automatic promotions. And if they carry on this form, they will be looking at that definitely. And it's exciting to see. We've seen this Cardiff of old, the side that got to the Premier League a few seasons back.
The side that know how to score goals, but yet at the same time be able to see out a game. Because obviously they didn't have the best of starts to this season. I don't think any Cardiff fan will deny that. And realistically, this vein of form, obviously, if we take into account the fact that they obviously got a result on Saturday just gone as well, beating Watford 1-0 away from home, they've taken themselves into the top half of the table. 9 points from a possible 9 in their last 3 games. I don't think that kind of form, obviously, as anyone would know, 3 games on the bounce, scoring 8, conceding 0. If they can maintain that, they will be strong candidates to at the halfway point of the season, obviously, which we are coming up to very thick and fast at this point. Very strong candidates at the halfway point to be mixing themselves up in around the playoffs.
100%. I think they are. That you're looking at them, and they're the league's most informed side. You've really got to fear them. Kiefer Moore, Shea Ojo, another player you picked up on in last week's podcast.
He's been very solid, yeah.
And I still like Junior Hoylott, who is obviously a very experienced championship winger as well. And they just have a lot of quality.
Yeah, he came off the bench for them in that one.
Exactly. And again, Josh Murphy as well, another top quality winger. And they just have quality thriving through that side in Cardiff, especially at championship level. and will really be a contender for the season. But anyway, we'll talk about Huddersfield perspective. They're really carrying on that inconsistency. They're just shipping in a lot of goals in recent weeks as well, which isn't ideal. Obviously, Tyrese Campbell. About Tyrese Campbell. Stoke City beat them 4-3 a few weeks ago. Again, shipping in 4 goals there, where Tyrese Campbell was on fire, which we spoke about. That's the point I was getting at. Sorry, it's Huddersfield really are. Whenever you watch them, you know you're going to be in for an exciting game. So they're either score a few goals or ship a load in. And in this case, they're shipping a load in. And I think they really need to find that consistent vein of form where they can just do what Cardiff are doing at the minute and score goals, but not concede. And they're really struggling with that.
Yeah, I mean, with Huddersfield, I think their main issue is actually being able to grind out a result full stop. If you look, obviously, the Cardiff result seems to be a bit of a blip in their kind of run, as you call it, because in their last 3, including obviously their win against QPR on Saturday, they've actually won 2 of their last 3, picking up 6 out of the possible 9. So they're not exactly. I say they're not exactly playing bad football, but if you look at everything they've had before that before the Middlesbrough win, they were actually 1 win in their last 7, picking up only a total 5 points out of a possible 21. Now, that is not good form at all.
That's
but like we
relegation
said,
form.
It is quite frankly relegation form. But realistically, if you look at this Huddersfield side, they've got a decent amount going for them in terms of the quality they do have in the squad, which we have seen. We've seen glimpses of that throughout the season. But looking at kind of the statistical side of the game that they had against Cardiff, they've dominated them for possession. They've been equal for the amount of shots that they've had. Actually, both teams have had 4 shots on target. I think the main point to note with this is that Cardiff's 3 goals came from clear-cut chances. They were they were expected to score them, in no other way to put it. Now, take every respect, they haven't necessarily played badly in this game. I think they've just kind of been at fault, and they've let themselves let their concentration, let their focus slip at times where they've just been, quite frankly, carved open. Now, Cardiff, by no doubt, are probably the better team when you look at their squad. They've got some very, very good players in there, like you've mentioned. I think the one that you didn't pick up on specifically is Harry Wilson. Now, obviously, he came off the bench. He came off the bench, and quite frankly, came off in the 90th minute. My apologies. And quite frankly, he is not a championship player. He is a Premier League quality player.
He was playing Premier League football last season with Bournemouth.
We see so many of these players that are Premier League quality. The same with Blackburn, how they've managed to get Harvey Elliott on loan. He's done very, very well at Liverpool. I thought personally that he was going to get a loan out to kind of a bottom half the league Premier League team. Blackburn have done very well to secure him, and obviously he's firing.
I'm also going to just point out, with the 3 sides that got relegated, you look at Watford have kept hold of Ismail Assar, easily Premier League quality. You look at Bournemouth, they've kept hold of David Brooks, easily Premier League quality. And you look at Norwich, they've kept hold of Emi Buendia, easily Premier League quality. These players should be playing Premier League football, but instead they're in the.
It's increasing the standard of quality.
100%, and we're seeing that. We are seeing that with the amount of international call-ups players are getting as well. The Championship has been where it hasn't been maybe 10 years ago. You're seeing a lot more players being called up for international duty, which again is probably leading on to the injury situations which a lot of clubs are experiencing at the minute, because a lot of players are out on international duty as well as playing a heavy.
It's not even necessarily for the first teams. A lot of young championship talent are getting called up for their respective countries. And this is where, like we were saying the other week, the 5-sub rule and how that can benefit certain teams. Obviously, in this case, when we're talking about Cardiff having this strength and depth, it's massively benefited them because they've been able to bring players of quality off of the bench. Like looking down their list, they bought Marlon Pack off the bench, they bought Robert Glatzel off the bench, and they bought Junior Hoylett off the bench, 3 of which are very good players. Obviously, they've also been able to bring on Gavin White and Josh Murphy, who, like you touched on, Josh Murphy's a very good player. He's proven that time and time again. I mean, even if you look at kind of Huddersfield side of things, they've also utilised the substitutions very well in this game. They made all 5 of theirs. It's the same argument that we're going to keep having as teams are able to utilise and really get grip on being able to use the 5 substitution rule. obviously we can't ignore the fact that there are injury
I'm
crises
just going
going on at
to
various
say,
clubs.
Josh, like it's a difficult subject to talk about, but with this 5-sub rule, like, it's obviously. Would you say it's making the championship more predictable? Because in the sense that the bigger teams in the championship, such as your Watfords, your Bournemouths, your Norwich, they're all going to be utilising the 5-sub rule and actually bringing quality off the bench. When they have a fully fit squad, they're going to bring in very high quality off the bench. Whereas the Wickhams, your Coventries, your Rotherhams aren't going to be bringing off the quality that the bigger clubs in the championship are. And do you think that will then make the championship a lot more of a predictable league than what it is usually used to? Like, we're used to seeing one outsider sneak into the playoffs to even get automatics. And this season, we're seeing, 3 of the top 3 battling out for promotion at the minute. 3 of the relegated teams all battling out for promotion at the minute. And it's, it's...
I think for me, the difference over previous years, the relegated teams this year have done very well to hold on to the core of their squads. Obviously, you have had some notable absences where various players from squads have left. Obviously, Watford have lost Gerard Deulofeu. He's gone out on loan to their kind of partner club, Udinese. You've had Nathan Ake, quite a substantial transfer fee for him coming in from Bournemouth. I mean, I'm fairly sure you had a few.
Jamal Lewis well, free going out to Newcastle and Everton.
They're kind of your main two. But looking at it, it's going to be something I think that will come in towards the end of the season. We'll see it a lot more. Obviously, we've got the big chunk of games that we normally get through April. We're in the Christmas period now, quite frankly. Teams having games coming thick and fast. But I know you obviously, Wickham was the first example that came to my head. They've not actually done that badly of late. Obviously, this rule is quite recently been introduced. They've actually only lost 1 of their last 5.
Yeah, it's a good point.
There's levels here that different teams have got to try and get. And it is obviously going to be a bit harder for the teams that don't have as much money or don't have as much squad depth to be able to really try and compete with your teams, such as your Swanseas, your Norwiches, your Bournemouths, your Watfords, even I'd go as far as to say as your Cardiff. Teams that have and Brentford. I was more going with what I said, teams that have recently come down from the Premier League, recently being within the kind of parachute payment window.
Stoke as well, then.
In the last kind of few years. Well, yeah, even Stoke, but
Middlesbrough.
Stoke.
You got loads.
Middlesbrough aren't within the parachute payment window anymore.
I don't think they are, but again, it's a bigger championship club. But anyway,
of course, no.
I think
it's an interesting one to sit with. But yeah, let's move on to the other game.
And this was a shock result. Bournemouth at home losing 3-2 to Preston, who Preston do like to beat one of the bigger championship sides. I mean, again, are they a big championship side themselves? Is yet to see. They're always just outside the playoffs come the end of the season, end of the last few seasons. But they've beaten Brentford 4-2, and now they've beaten Bournemouth 3-2 after going 3-0 up. Goals from Barkhausen, Sinclair and Bauer. Again, 3-0 up, you're cruising. But then, Bournemouth try and get it back. Goals from Stanislas and Surridge, but it was all too little too late for Bournemouth. And I think Bournemouth, over these past 2 games where they drew 2-2 to Rotherham and lost 3-2 to Preston, they've had a few creaks coming up, really. They've been shipping in a few goals, yet still scoring goals, but they are becoming a bit leaky at the back.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, and as you've kind of touched on before, with the Championship being such kind of a competitive league, this is kind of seeming to be Bournemouth's first little wobble, because you look at a lot of the teams up the top end, every team has had their little kind of dip in form, their little wobble that makes you kind of look at them and go, oh, is this the start of a downward spiral? And then they seem to pick it back up. Now, I think Bournemouth are very, very capable of obviously having this little slump as a little blip. Quite frankly, I don't think anyone expected Preston to get a result out of this game. And obviously, full credit to them for managing to do that. In the game on the whole, obviously, Preston scored 3 goals. They scored 3 goals from 8 shots, 5 of which were on target. Any team's got to be happy with that. As literally it's clinical going forward, quite frankly. They didn't exactly have all of the ball. Bournemouth at home, we've seen it before, normally control a game and make it their own and are very, very strong with it. And we've seen that time and time again throughout the course of this season. They've been capable of causing some results that maybe at halftime you'd look at them and go, oh, they shouldn't have won that game, or you'd look at them and go, oh, maybe they're lucky to get something out of that. And in this one, I think I did say it could have very much been the same. Even with Preston storming into this 3-0 lead, obviously 2 of the goals did come after half time. Bournemouth did then obviously look very, very convincing. Junior Stanislas scoring in the 71st minute, followed by a triple sub from Bournemouth. Again, showing how much strength they've got to be able to come off the bench. They nicked one in the 86th, and then after an elongated period of time due to Patrick Bauer's injury, they unfortunately weren't able to grab the equaliser or, of course, a winner. Preston did what they needed to do, quite frankly, and I don't think there can be any faults by and large.
It's an interesting fact with Preston. They're a very exciting team, like I was saying, of Huddersfield. They ship in a lot of goals, but also can score some. Obviously, we saw on the weekend, previous to that game, that they lost 4-1 to Watford, another side, obviously, battling for promotion.
And they got absolutely battered in that game. There's no other way to put it.
They got absolutely, like you say, battered. And then they've come to Bournemouth, and you're just expecting the same thing to happen again. I think everyone's expecting Bournemouth to come away with all 3 points in this one. And, they go 3-0 up, and it's a completely bizarre. And I think it kind of retracts from what I said earlier, is a championship becoming more predictable. But, Preston, after losing 4-1 to Watford, go 3-0 up at Bournemouth. And, like I say, maybe it isn't predictable, but maybe it is at the same
But then to carry on with a surprise, and I know I keep referring to Saturday's games and the weekend fixtures that we've just had. So they've gone from losing 4-1 to a team that's battling at the top end of the table, and then beaten another top end of the table team 3-2. And then they've gone and drawn 2-2 with Wickham, and actually they nicked a point quite late on through an own goal. I don't think that this is what we talk about when we say about a team being inconsistent. Getting battered by a team at the top, beating a team at the top, and then dropping points to a team that are realistically
our favourites to
be
finish
getting all 3 points. Especially the fact that you've got to look at the fact that they were at home as well.
Exactly.
I know, obviously, the fan argument is a bit of a difficult one with certain teams not having fans in, certain teams having fans in. By and large, the home argument goes: you're playing on your own pitch. You play on that pitch regularly enough. Your grounds people have control over that pitch. It's not one of them that you can kind of start blaming a little thing. At the end of the day, Preston needed to go out in that game and get the result, which they quite frankly didn't in the Wickham game. But that is me talking about the weekend. We're here to talk about how they've managed to beat Bournemouth. And again, that's another one that the result was not predictable, in my opinion. I don't think anyone would have seen that coming.
100%.
And full credit for them for managing to pull that off.
Anyway, we'll move on to the Wednesday game. And I'll go with one that I picked. And again, it is featuring my team. It's our 3-1 loss to Luton away from home. And I think we said this in last week's podcast, I was not confident going into this game whatsoever. We obviously had a whole host of injuries. I think at the time we must have had about 12 first-team players that were actually available for selection. Our injury list is longer than a kid's Christmas list. And that is saying a lot.
Have you been getting the Argos catalogue out at Norwich and circling all of the players you want to come back from injury and all of the people that you want to try and sign in January, considering you have an absolute plethora of money? And we've seen it in over the summer how much you were being able to get new players in. I mean, you bought some unbelievable talent over the summer.
It's funny you say we bought unbelievable talent. We made about 10 signings, but we didn't spend more than 10 million. And if you look at the profit we made, we sold Jamal Lewis for 15 million and then sold Ben Godfrey for 25 million. That's already 40 million there. And we've only spent 10 of that. So we still made 30
Good maths. Well done.
Yeah,
you managed to nail that one.
There we go.
Well done.
But yeah, anyway, we'll go on to the actual game. Norwich played Marco Stiepen up front, who 3 seasons ago was playing left back for Norwich. Luton took the lead through Moncur. Norwich equalised for a penalty from Ebby Buendia not too long after.
Another Norwich City penalty.
Another one after Mario Vrancic converted one at the weekend. Pearson managed to put Luton back on winning ways 3 minutes after. Buendia scored, and then Collins scored a penalty straight after half-time. It was a bit controversial, the penalty, because we saw, I think it was Luke Derry, I believe his name is. Luke Berry, I think it was Luke Berry.
Luke Berry.
Yeah, jumping on the referee after he gave the penalty, which initially is very the penalty itself was controversial, and that's even more controversial. It's like hitting a match fixing, but yeah.
Well, it's being investigated, I believe, so it'll be interesting to see the outcome of that. But I mean, again, like you said, you weren't confident going into the game, but what you've managed to do in the game, you obviously did what you seem to do best, and you dominated possession, you dominated the ball, and you've really tried to make it hard for Luton. Obviously, they were both. The two penalties were probably obviously the biggest chances that each team had to convert. Luton, quite frankly, took their chances better than Norwich. But like you said, that's to be expected with having a guy who used to play left back at striker. It's not easy in that respect from a Norwich side of things. And like you said, you're very injury stricken at the minute, and it's always going to be quite hard when you're
also the first time. It's the first time Norwich have conceded 3 goals in a game all season. So defensively, they've been very solid this season, which we haven't seen in previous seasons with Norwich. You know, they've been very leaky. Even in that season they won the league, they still conceded 60-odd goals. And this season, Norwich seem to be defensively assured. But, you know, we're seeing that sort of the cracks coming back in because of the injuries. You know, you're playing Jakob Sorensen at left back, who is a CDM. You know, he's a centre defensive midfielder. He's not a left back. He's never played there before in his life before he came in. And then you've got Ben Gibson, Grant Hanley, 2 great centre halves. But then you've got Max Aarons, who in the weekend's game against Coventry got absolutely clattered. Well, I think he clattered someone, but came off worse than the other player. And you know, he was a doubt for the game, and he did start instead. But again, defensively, we just looked so lethargic. It was a very lethargic performance from Norwich. It was just miserable, really, to watch. But yeah.
Quite frankly, I don't think you can take. Obviously, I leave you to talk about the Norwich thing just because you know it a lot better than I do. But take nothing away from Luton in this game. I mean, we've both sung their praises in games previously and how they've managed to grind out results. They aren't the Luton team that a lot of pundits thought we were going to see this season, especially after last season. They were definitely the heavily tipped team to go down last season. They pulled off the great escape. They managed to stay up, and I mean, quite frankly, as a football fan, I loved every second of it. Any team that you're seeing pull off what would be classed as a great escape, everyone's going to love it. Looking at them this season, if they look at their league position right now, they're 9 points off the top, 11 points off the bottom. Yes, we're not yet halfway through the league season, but they cannot complain. Being set on 22 points, they are really doing themselves some justice here. And take absolutely nothing away from them, they have done very, very well at executing game plans this year. And I think, quite frankly, that's exactly what we've seen here, is they've known exactly what they need to do, and they've done it perfectly.
100%.
Yeah, it's one of them. It was obviously always, like you said, a difficult game for Norwich going into it. But Luton are one of them teams. They this season have made themselves one of those teams.
Yeah, no, but look, I think the thing is with Luton, I think we've seen when Nathan Jones come in, the side's been they've completely changed their form, and it's been refreshing to see. You know, a side that we've tipped to go down in their first season, stayed up brilliantly. We're tipped to go down their second season. They've actually now said, you know, hang on, we're putting our name on the championship. We're making sure that we're going to be a championship club. And do you know what? At the start of the season, when we saw them winning games and, you know, becoming top of the league after the first 3 games, we were all fearing for a minute, oh, hang on, are Luton going to go to the Premier League here? Because they just seem to just have this style about them that you don't see very often.
They've got a very good manager behind them. And I mean, obviously, like there's been kind of the theme of this midweek. A lot of the teams up the top did actually have a wobble over this midweek period, and that's what I'm actually going to talk about going into the next game. And it's really ironic, and I do apologise, but I'm going to pick Sheffield Wednesday or with Reading. I don't want to hound on about this one too much in terms of a Reading perspective. I think there's a lot more kind of from an outside point that you need to look at for this game.
And I think
in this game, for me, this game, there was a lot of very questionable refereeing. And that's obviously something that I think needs to be sorted in the Championship. We've seen it week after week, game after game. There are so many dodgy decisions being given. Now, okay, we get that there's human error. And obviously we have seen that the technology is available in the video assistant referees that have been implemented across Europe, and it's notably in the Premier League. I don't think that they've got the technology being utilised correctly. Therefore, it is very much a toss-up. Would you rather correct decisions being made, or would you rather the game have the heart and soul like we see in the second tier? Obviously, in this game, Reading very much the dominant side, and quite frankly showed why they are where they are. That probably was more as a result of the fact that Liam Shaw managed to get himself sent off again, seemingly not in my eyes, but seemingly it was quite a controversial sending off. I thought it was personally a red card, but you always would when it's against your own club. But it was in my eyes, a studs up tackle. Yes, he won the ball. However, it was more the follow through, the studs up motion, the scissoring round that the referee Oliver Langford at the time decided, you know what, that's enough to give a red card. Moving into the second half, they've done exactly what they needed to do. They'd held us to a draw at half time despite playing 15 minutes of the first half with 10 men, and they've sat back. And defended like absolute warriors, putting players behind the ball, men literally giving their all. I mean, Callum Patterson, who quite frankly is a striker, his defensive work in that game cannot be ignored. He was nothing short of excellent. Now, the main thing that I said that I wanted to touch on, there were two things for this game. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the refereeing standard. Reading had 4 penalty shouts in the game. I think 2 of them were stonewall, one of which Adam Reach literally caught the ball on the goal line from a Josh Lawrence chance. And the other one was earlier in the game, Omar Richards threw on goal, taken down, referee choosing to award a Sheffield Wednesday free kick for that one. Now, there are so many, as we see week by week, it's a very hard topic to talk about refereeing, but we do obviously see referees come under a lot of scrutiny when they do things wrong. Now, the argument being in this game, and it's again a very controversial topic, do you think referees have that subconscious thought that if they give a wrong decision, they need to equal it out? Because that's something that could have happened in this game, and it's something that we've seen as a potential opinion that's happened in other games. I mean, yes, we struggle in terms of actual refereeing quality, but it's always hard. And at the end of the day, they are human beings. They can't see everything, and they can't always get the decisions correct, which is where we look at the fact that we've got modern technology available. How can we utilize it? The revolutionary technology of goal line coming in through Hawkeye. Incredible. And it's actually helped the game for the better because it stopped things, legitimate goals that have been scored, not being given. I mean, how have you? What refereing kind of opinion do you have of the Championship so far this season? Obviously, you're used to coming from the Premier League with VAR, and how's it seemed for you?
It's with football as a whole for me, and I think if you look over the past 10 to 15 years, refereeing is the only part of the football game which hasn't been technologically improved to a mass. Like refereeing, we've only just had VAR come in, we've had goal line technology come in 5, 6, 7 years ago. But apart from that, VAR has been very dodgy. It hasn't really worked, as we've seen. Will it work in the Championship? God, no. Championship's got so many difficult decisions compared to the Premier League. The Premier League, yeah, it's got more eyes watching it, but the Championship, if you look at some of the decisions you've got to make, it's a lot more difficult.
It's not an easy league to referee at all.
Oh, no, by any means it's not. And I think, again, we do have to remember that referees are human, but there is a standard of refereeing you've got to keep, and you can't make mistakes like that. Like when it's a very obvious penalty and 2 obvious penalties, when it's handball on the line, you know what I mean? You've got an assistant referee, you've got a 4th official, you've got a referee in the middle. At least one of them will be able to see it's a handball. If it's that obvious, one of them's got to see. And
and I mean, especially a decision like this, how late on in the game this was. And I'm not highlighting that this is the only time that we've seen that over the course of this season. There, of course, have been other moments where teams will have felt aggrieved over a decision, be it a red card, be it even a yellow card, a foul given against them, an offside decision that was missed. People always feel aggrieved on things not going their way. But the manner of this and how late the ball was blocked by Adam Reach on the line, quite frankly, it robbed Reading of the opportunity to claim all 3 points. The argument being they still should have done it anyway in normal time. They were playing against 10 men for a whole hour of that game. And that does take me on to what the other thing I wanted to talk about. Obviously, Tony Pulis has taken the helm at Sheffield Wednesday, and quite frankly, he's shown why he's such a successful manager in certain areas. He knows how to discipline his team. He knows how to set up a shape, and he knows how to get them to work hard for the team.
100%. Tony Pulis is a top quality manager at this level. He loves to wear the club shop as well, which everyone loves to see. But no, he's a very, very good manager in the sense of he's very disciplined. But the way how he puts out his team is very disciplined. They've got a task and they're willing to go out and do that task. Yes, they may not have a lot of the ball, and yes, they're going to have very few chances. But the fact is they buy into his philosophy and they buy into his game plan and they make it work on occasions. And again, obviously against Reading, aside, battling for promotion, I think you've got to admit it now, you're battling for promotion.
I'll admit it once we're over 35 games in.
Well, I'm going to say it myself then. But
all right, you do that. I don't want to jinx it.
But yeah, and to see out a game plan and get a draw is a good result for them. But anyway, we'll quickly just we're just going to run through, just tell you the rest of the scores from the Tuesday, Wednesday games in case you had missed them and did want to know.
And we'll dip a little opinion onto each game, I think.
100%.
We'll go very rapid fire through.
Very rapid. Yeah. So Josh, do you want to start us off?
All right, I'll start us off then. So the first one that I've got from the Tuesday games. So Derby drew 1-1 at home to Coventry. 2 very late goals in this game. I think that's a solid point for both teams. I think they would have rather have gained 1 point other than dropped all 3.
And the guy who you sang the praises for, Hamer, scored the equaliser for Coventry.
He seems to be really making this league his own this year, and I do think that if Coventry don't manage to survive this season, he could find himself getting a deal to another Championship club very easily.
Anyway, moving on to the next result, Birmingham losing 2-1 to Barnsley. Barnsley maybe becoming a side to be feared this season. They do like to pick up maybe the odd win now and then. They're now becoming a mid-table side. Me and Josh and both happily admit we thought Barnsley were going to be near enough rock bottom, relegated back to League One. We didn't see them standing a chance of survival, but they've really turned things around and started to become a side that are to be fitted in the Championship. They can score goals and they can get...
Like we said with Luton, they're doing very, very well to seem to defy odds of that people have chucked against them. They're defying all of this adversity and they're doing very well, and there's no point in ignoring that. The next game that I've got to highlight is Queen Park Rangers slumping to a 2-1 defeat at home against Bristol City. Bristol City, obviously coming off the back of losing at the weekend to Reading, have managed to, well, quite frankly, stole the game in this one. I don't think by looking at the stats they really deserved it at all. And this is a testament to what we've said about QPR in the past, that they seem to be really struggling this season. And we don't know why. They had a majority of the ball in this one, did QPR. They had more shots, more chances, and they just didn't convert.
Bristol City back
ultimately
in this game, back to winning ways after that loss against Reading previous weekend.
Indeed they were. And yeah, like we say, it's a matter of kind of teams needing to find their balance. QPR haven't found that balance this season. But I'll let you take on to the next
the final game,
Tuesday night game.
Yes, the final game, Rotherham. Brentford, 10-man. Rotherham lost 2-0 to Brentford. Ivan Toney getting the goal and assist in this game as he carries on his march into the Championship, where he is taking it with, he's taking his chance with both hands and he's absolutely thriving on it and he's absolutely loving his life here. Top goal scorer in the Championship still this season. Rotherham, who got that 2-2 draw against Bournemouth, struggled in this one. I'm guessing going down to 10 men for them was difficult, and facing such a prowess going forward in Ivan Toney is always going to be...
He is a cracking player, isn't he?
It's always going to be difficult dealing with him. But anyway, I'll go on to the Wednesday games. Josh, if you want to take us through.
Yeah, so the first one that I've got for the Wednesday games, Middlesbrough really kind of putting the brakes on for Swansea, beating them 2-1 at home. Swansea, very good defensively, so I'm actually quite surprised to have seen them concede 2 goals, and that administered them only their 3rd loss of the season. Before this game, Swansea had only conceded 8 goals. They've now... Well, quite frankly, they've got the best defensive record in the league. They've only conceded 10 so far in the 16 games. So again, a bit of a shock result. And goes on to my point about how the teams at the top were dropping points. But take nothing away from Middlesbrough. We said that they're a very hard team to beat, and Duncan Watmore got a brace in that one.
And we're going to move on to the next game. Blackburn beating Millwall 2-1. Blackburn carrying their rise. Well, we said at the start of the season, we thought they'd definitely be a dark horse for the playoffs. They still are. They still know how to score goals. Obviously, Adam Armstrong, Harvey Elliott, Tyrese Dolan, and players like that do know how to score goals. And they are picking up wins here and there. And obviously, they picked up a win against a Millwall side who aren't the easiest team to beat by any stretch of the margin. So it's a good win for Blackburn.
Yeah, very good win for Blackburn in that, and obviously Millwall kind of having that knocked out of them a little bit, especially considering how they've kind of shown themselves so far this season. They've had times where they've looked quite good, but right now they are not on a good run of form at all. They're drawing a lot of games, so they are still ticking the points up, but quite frankly, they're not being able to grind out results and ultimately do what every team wants to do, which is win games. But let's move on now to struggling team Nottingham Forest hosting high flyers Watford. So going into this game, you'd think, right, okay, Premier League outfit of last season, Watford doing very well this season, scoring goals, just coming off beating Preston 4-1 against a team of Nottingham Forest who are struggling to score, not able to get results. You'd expect a Watford whitewash, right? No, you'd be wrong. It was a 0-0, one shot on target. I don't think I'm going to say anything more on that because that's as much as that game deserved.
Yeah, I mean, if I was watching that, I'd fall asleep. Anyway, we'll move on to the next game.
I very nearly did because that was one of my choices to keep an eye on as well on the Wednesday.
Wow, what a poor choice you made. Anyway, we'll move on. Stoke beating Wycombe 1-0. And this was obviously Wycombe's only loss in their past 5 games. And Stoke, again, they are proving to be a very, very decent outfit this season. Really are going to go out and beat
teams. They've propelled themselves into the top 6 as it stands. Obviously, that does take into account the weekend's results just gone. But they are one of the very few teams that have actually managed to win half of their games so far this season. They've won 8 of 16. And like you said, they have got threats going forward, having scored 23 goals in that time. I think they've done very well in this game also to keep a clean sheet. I don't think they really put a foot wrong, and quite frankly, they probably could have had more. But like we said previously, Wycombe do know how to defend, and in this one, they did actually have fans back. And I remember seeing something during the week. Gareth Ainsworth came out and he made a statement, and he said about how, obviously, bear in mind this is the first time Wycombe fans have been able to see their club compete in a championship fixture. He said that even when a ball went out for a throw-in and their team had won that throw-in, the roar from the fans felt like they just scored a goal. That's what I think fans bring to football. It's brilliant to see, and I absolutely love it. The passion that goes into it, the pure love and the absolute desire of teams having fans wanting to get behind them and spur them on to do better. It's brilliant to see, but obviously, unfortunately, they did slump to that defeat, like we say.
Well, just going on to the subject of fans. Just going on to the subject of fans, and I wasn't at the Norwich game on Saturday where we played Sheffield Wednesday. But there was a video from the game, and you see our owners, Michael Wynne-Jones and Delia Smith, going over to the fans and applauding them. You know, they're back after all this time. And, you know, just someone starts on the Bull City and everyone sings it, all 2,000 fans, and it sounds like 27,000 fans are there. And it's just amazing to hear, you know, after all this time, fans have still got the energy and still got the love in them to support their team. Even though there's only 2,000 there, there's so many restrictions in place, and they're still supporting their team and still singing and still cheering them on. And it's just refreshing to see. And I think it just shows us and it proves to us football fans that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I think for anyone that is able to go to games that may be missing football and it may be affecting their mental health, I know it's such an important thing going at football for some people. And it really does, you know, bring them that 90 minutes or that day that they're just forgetting everything in their life and just, you know, enjoying themselves. And I think we're now seeing that day finally returning. And I think that's what's really pleasing to see.
Indeed, it is. I mean, we've already seen it, and we've had fans back in for a matter of 2 game weeks. Well, 1.5 realistically, because actually half of the midweek games you weren't allowed fans in because they'd missed the cut off by a day. but it's going to be something we're going to really enjoy seeing, and hopefully, as more fans are allowed back in, we can get closer to back to full crowds. And at the point that we do get full crowds, I know for a fact that people are never going to take that for granted again, because it's something that I've definitely missed. Not that I get to see full crowds at Reading, because obviously we've only got 10 fans and we all eat tea and crumpets supposedly. Don't know where that stereotypes come from, but hey, I'm going to take it and carry on bantering myself off, because apparently, like we say, and I keep getting reminded, Reading apparently have no fans, which I disagree with. But hey, let's move on now to the weekend. I think we'll go with 3 games from Saturday. We'll smash through them exactly.
We'll go with the Friday game as well. I think we'll go with the Friday game as well. I want to touch on that one because that's a huge win. Obviously, we've seen Bournemouth have their small banana slip. Drawing to Rotherham, again, unexpected. Losing to Preston at home, unexpected. But they've come out the blocks and they've gone to Barnsley. A Barnsley side who did win midweek. And obviously, I've said they're a difficult team to beat. And Bournemouth have proved why they are a Premier League quality side and why they are going to be very, very good contenders to go up to the Premier League. And to be honest with you, mate, it's a thumping victory.
It is. I mean, I think any game that has a 3 or more goal margin normally is considered a bit of a thumping. Again, just to go off of the fact that obviously Bournemouth had been in that kind of little slump of form, not necessarily one that was kind of expected, but nonetheless, obviously one that would be very well welcomed by all of the Bournemouth fans. It's never easy being in a little bit of a slump to then come out of that, but they've jumped out of it brilliantly and they've executed exactly what they needed to do. They've done their work, they've done the hard bit, and obviously that's come and shown up here in the fact that they've managed to get a 4-0 win in this game. But I don't think you can take anything away from Barnsley, and I think they'll look at it and go, okay, they are realistically a better team than us, as a lot of teams that will play Bournemouth this season will say. It does obviously leave Barnsley slipping a little bit closer to the bottom. However, they are still 8 points clear of that bottom 3, which is ultimately what they'll aim to do for this season, is see how close they can get to the top 6 and how far away from the bottom 3 they can get, as a lot of teams will ultimately aim to do. I don't think Bournemouth really put much of a foot wrong in this game. And quite frankly, being able to deliver a 4-0, especially away from home, is never easy.
100%, mate. 100% agree. And we'll move on to the Saturday games now, mate.
So we'll take one each. Go on, one each. I want to make you pick, because I think for me there are 2 that I would pick as a standout. We'll obviously touch on the rest of them like we've just done, but this is where I'm really going to test how in sync we are.
See, so the 2 that I'd personally go with, we'll see if we get the right. We're on the same wavelength, but the 2 that I'd go with are Preston Wickham. Would you go with the same?
Okay, yeah.
And then the other one
weren't one of my thoughts, but they were third. If we were doing 3, they'd be the third one.
Okay,
there were 2 higher up there.
And Bristol City, Birmingham, for me.
So ironically, I didn't pick either of them. I picked Millwall losing 1-0 to Derby, and Coventry beating Rotherham 3-1. You know what? Let's lead with.
Millwall.
We'll go with all 4 of these, and we'll go through all of these, and we'll come to Millwall last.
Yeah, we've got 2 different ones each.
I'll let. Take away with your first one then.
So I'm going to go on to Preston versus Wickham, and like we said previously in this podcast, that Preston were very lucky to come away with even a point in this game after beating, one of the high flyers in the league, Bournemouth 3-2. You'd think that Preston, they'll probably come away with this comfortably. But this is a Wickham side that had lost midweek, but still are playing very well and are being they're very difficult to beat. And I think me and you can both say that because we've both played them. Yes, we beat them, but we only just beat them. For us, it took a 91st minute free kick from Mario Vrancic. I can't remember what it took for you guys, but again, you only just beat them.
Long ball from the goalkeeper and a spark of brilliance from Lucas Jow.
Again,
we've seen so many times this season.
So again, for both
very
of us,
fine margins.
Yeah, very fine margins, and both took us a bit of excellence to beat Wickham. So they aren't any mugs in this league, and we've clearly seen this here. Preston having to find a bit of luck with a late McCarthy own goal. I think Wickham will be very hard done by, to go to Deepdale, a difficult place to go to in this league, obviously, as we both know, and to actually pick up a point they'll be very happy with, but they'll be a bit downhearted by it, but because they could have picked up all three, they were 2-0 up until the 80th
minute. They quite frankly deserved all three. I don't know what you've kind of seen of this game, but they had chances to score. They hit the woodwork in this game, and it kind of has been a bit of a fairy tale of their season. They have only scored 9 goals all season. Obviously, 2 of them did come in this game, but in front of goal, they are not being clinical enough, quite frankly. That's ultimately how you win a football game. As much as they...
Yes, they haven't been clinical in previous games, but are they now starting to turn a page? Because going to Deepdale, scoring 2 goals away from home, for a Wickham side that we all thought they were going to finish bottom, isn't bad going. I mean, yes, like you said, they've had chances, they could have scored more, but I still think to score 2 away at Deepdale isn't bad at all.
No, it's not. I mean, if you look at the kind of, I'll call it the front 5 that they started in this game. Fred Onyedinma, Gareth McCleary, Darryl Horgan, Adebayo Akinfenwa, of course, household name, everyone knows who Adebayo Akinfenwa is, and Scott Cashkit. 2 of those actually scored the goals in Gareth McCleary, who they signed on a free, and Scott Cashkit also being able to bag for Wickham. Now, I know we talk about them and how they're able to they've not really been able to score, but in this game as well, they have kind of conceded. We've said that they've been quite hard to break down at times, but ultimately they have conceded 2 in this game. It's not one of the worst kind of thumpings that they've had, because quite frankly, in a few of their games, they've been turned over a little bit at times. Notably, I think you look at the Blackburn game from earlier in the season, they had 5 put past them. Other than that, realistically, they've only really been conceding 1 or 2 goals in games. But they have proven that they can be tight defensively, but at times they really do have some weaknesses that teams are able to exploit. And ultimately, I don't know what you can really put that down to, because they've got a great unit there at Wickham, and they've got a great manager who really knows how to get them going. But obviously, full credit to Preston for getting themselves back into this game, and they have proven why that they've got that quality in their team, and why they were actually able to pull off the result they did against Bournemouth.
100%. But yeah, good result for Wickham. They would have wanted all 3 points after seeing how the game turned out. Preston will, again, have wanted all 3 points before the game, but I'll be happy with a point after how they've seen the game turn out. Anyway, we'll move on to the next game I chose, which was Bristol City against Birmingham, which ended 1-0 to Birmingham City. Harley Dean, the centre-half, getting the goal with 10 minutes before the end of the game. A shock result, obviously, Bristol City going back to winning ways in midweek after losing to Reading the previous weekend, then slipped up again at home to a Birmingham side who are just very, I don't know, just not.
They've been a bit mediocre, quite frankly, this season. And I mean, that's probably going to come back to bite me at some point. Obviously, they signed the former Barcelona star Alan Halilovic, who came off the bench to make his debut for the side in this one. But if you look at Birmingham so far this season, they played 16 games, winning 4 of them. They scored 12 goals and conceded 14. They're very strong going forward. They seem to be very strong at the back, obviously scoring less than a goal a game, but also conceding less than a goal a game, which is quite frankly what happened.
Again, being the snore-fest of the championship. But again, Bristol City, they should be really disappointed in that, because they want to be, like we said, they had that previous blip. They kind of turned it around, but now they're looking to have another blip. If they want to be promotion challenges, playoff challenges for this season, you can't afford to have too many blips in your season, because the more it happens, the more you drop points, and the more points the teams around you pick up. But Birmingham will be very happy with this. Obviously, at the minute they're very mid-table-esque, and for them it'd be 3 points either to maybe push them as a bit of a dark horse to the playoffs, or to keep them in this division. Personally, for me, they've got a very good side of individuals. Maybe as a team, they're not really, I don't know, gelling maybe, but at the same time, Birmingham would be very happy to go to Ashton Gate and pick up all 3 points.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you know how the Birmingham side does after I go and watch them on Wednesday, because being my first game back. Ironically, my last game before lockdown, actually one that you came to as well, was away at St Andrews. The team that I'm going to be seeing play next is Birmingham as well. I seem to have an obsession with going and watching Birmingham, apparently. Don't know how that quite works.
One of the most exciting teams in the Championship.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you know how they play. But moving on, anyways, to the first of my picks, we're going to go with Coventry beating Rotherham 3-1. Quite frankly, this is a 6-pointer down the bottom of the league. It's early doors in the league to be calling it a 6-pointer, but the fact that Coventry have gone 3-0 up in this game, they were very commanding. They took chances when it came their way, and realistically, they could have had more.
Oh, 100%. And a player that stands out for me in this game is Tyler Walker. Was a Nottingham Forest Academy product. Didn't quite make it there. Has gone down the leagues and is now with Coventry, scoring and getting assists in this game. Again, he looks like a very, very sharp striker. And I think for teams down the bottom, you need a goal scorer. It's the same in every single division. If you want to stay up, you need someone who can score you goals, because goals are going to be the way you keep up. Because as the teams are down the bottom of the table, you are going to concede goals. It's going to happen. You haven't got the greatest players in the league compared to other teams. So you need a striker who can score you goals. And Tyler Walker seems to be that guy for Coventry, as well as Biamu. But Tyler Walker's going to be the one that I highlight because he's also got an assist in this game. But yeah, the huge Coventry was going 3-0 up, scoring 2 goals before the 15-minute mark. And then an own goal from Smith, pretty much securing the 3 points. But a late Barlaza penalty for Rotherham in the 85th minute really didn't
really do a lot, did it?
Yeah, it was a consolation. Just stopped Coventry getting a clean sheet, which I'm guessing they probably would have wanted. But at the end,
and it was actually also Rotherham's only shot on target in the whole game. And like you said, if you're picking up points, you need to, quite frankly, be scoring goals. Coventry did in this game. Rotherham failed to do that. I don't think
results says it all, doesn't it? But
yeah,
I think on a Rotherham perspective, they'll be very disappointed with this. We're looking last weekend, we were singing their praises, singing Paul Warne's praises. They've just drawn 2-2 to, Bournemouth, and Bournemouth speak for themselves about how good they are in this division. They go lose 2-0 to Brentford. Again, it's an expected result because Brentford, they've got a very good attacking prowess in Ivan Toney, and Rotherham were down to 10 men. But in this game, you're looking at it like, it's a relegation 6-pointer. You've got to be up for it. If you're Paul Warne, you need to motivate your players and tell them they've got to be up for it, because, these two sides will most likely be down. They come to the end of the season. And I mean, I'd back Rotherham to survive over Coventry, but looking at how this game went, I don't really know, because Rotherham just didn't seem to turn up at all.
No, and you look at the kind of generic outcome of the game, and that is actually Rotherham's 9th defeat of the season. It's really not great having to say that realistically. Any team who would look at this and saying that they've already lost 9 games in 16, it's not great form at all. And now it does actually create a bit of breathing space, so to speak, between your teams such as Coventry, Queen's Park Rangers, Barnsley and Birmingham, that are kind of towards the bottom end of the kind of mid-table aspect that, when looking at the table itself. But going into this, you kind of have got to look at it and go, right, as you've said, both teams have got to be up for it. One team clearly was more up for it than the other. I don't think there's going to be much more that they can kind of do. What's happened, but the management are going to have to look at both sets from both sides. Coventry are going to look at this and go, right, we've turned up, we've done what we needed to do. Let's maintain that and carry on kicking on now. Rotherham are going to look at it and go, right, okay, we've not done what we needed to do in this game. We need to turn it around next game, which, quite frankly, they've not got a choice in doing, but they've got a very tough tie to be doing it with.
Anyway, we'll move on to the next game, Josh. And your next game was Millwall versus Derby, which we saw Derby only for the second time this season getting 3 points. Looks like Wayne Rooney might have turned them around here.
Millwall, who did they beat in their first win? Who did they beat? Was that Norwich City by any chance? Top of the league, Norwich City losing to Derby, who are one of the worst performing teams in the league.
Oh, we're still top of the league, so.
Oh, I can't wait until you get knocked off that pedestal. But anyways, enough about me roasting you or you trying to rip into me. Let's talk about the football. Quite frankly, Derby will be over the moon with being able to finally pick up another 3 points. Millwall, their second defeat in as many games, only their fourth defeat of the season, however. They need to be very careful that they don't slip off, because obviously it's been a while since they've actually picked up a win. They're very good at drawing games. They can't seem to be able to win one. Derby, however, obviously this does kind of keep them in touch with everyone that is kind of hovering just above the bottom three, and it also does lift them off the bottom of the table after they have now climbed above Sheffield Wednesday, obviously with that point deduction that they've got from the EFL. Realistically, in this game, I've kind of looked at the stats, and teams didn't really have a great deal of chance. I would say each team probably only had one chance to snatch the game,
and
Derby took theirs.
Derby did it, and I think that if because obviously they're now one of the favourites to go down because of everything that's happened with the club. If they want to stay up, that one chance that they might get in a game that can get them all 3 points, they've got to take it. And in this game, they did. And you know, Derby will be over the moon with that. Millwall will be really, really disappointed with that. Obviously, they want to go get all 3 points, especially at home against a side like Derby. They were favourites to win, and obviously didn't back it up. But going off we'll talk off the pitch sort of side. Obviously, we saw some really, really horrible scenes at Millwall where you had fans booing players taking the knee, which isn't on. Racism of any kind in football.
Not in my eyes, no.
Yeah, racism in any kind or in any world, it just shouldn't happen. Racism shouldn't be a part of this game, and players are taking a stand.
Shouldn't be a part of society at all. I mean,
100%.
Yeah,
and
it's a horrible thing to see, quite frankly.
Yeah. And players taking a stand for it as well.
The thing to note, Millwall weren't the only team that suffered from this. There was a big thing that happened. It was a thing at Colchester United, who play their football in League Two. A few players have come out about that, and likewise from this Millwall game, they've actually had some kind of statements made from players.
I find really
notably,
yeah. But sorry, what I
notably
find
Marlon Romeo came out.
Sorry, what I find really...
I think there's a bit of line delay. My apologies.
What I find really annoying about this is that players are taking a stand for racism to stop them getting, abuse, like people that have suffered with racism. And what I read something on Anfield on the stadium that was put out the other day was something that like the lockdown, playing football over lockdown for some players was peace. And it was regarding racism. You know, some players didn't have to deal with fans giving them racist abuse, and for them it was peace. And we need to make sure they can have that peace, but still have the noise of fans there and the support of fans. And the fact that we've come back to football within the first 2 game weeks, and with the first game at the Den, we're seeing fans booing players taking a stand against racism. And for me, that's disgusting to see.
Yeah, it's a very, very controversial one, obviously, to talk about by any medium. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. However, my opinion stands that racism should not be prevalent in any kind of society, and people are using taking the knee as their kind of stand against racism for equality. Obviously, like I was saying, Marlon Romeo came out after this game and made a statement about how he felt personally attacked, that his own fans were choosing to boo against something that means so much to him personally. We've seen players from other teams do it as well. Like I was saying with the Colchester incident, Robbie Cowling, the owner of Colchester United, has actually said that anyone who chooses to boo at Colchester United is quite frankly not welcome at the club, fans-wise, and has actually offered to refund anyone's season tickets or ticket prices that they have paid if they don't agree with what he said. So there are steps being taken. I've not seen anything that Millwall have made, but there are steps being taken against the fans that have chosen to cause uproar against the choice that the players are making. Ultimately, players don't have to do it. They're choosing to do it because they believe that equality is needed. They're doing it for themselves. They're doing it for their colleagues. And ultimately, they want that equality in the sport. Likewise, the argument is that everyone who chooses to boo is doing it on their own opinion. However, is quite frankly not welcome. And I think a lot of people have demonstrated that now.
Agreed. Very well spoken, Josh. Anyway, we're going to move on to the rest of Saturday's games and just quickly run through those, and then we'll go through our predictions, and then we'll wrap the podcast up. So starting off, obviously, with the early kickoff, Josh, Reading beating Nottingham Forest 2-0 at home. A very, very solid win. Obviously, Yates got sent off in the 15th minute. I believe that was for handball, wasn't it, on the line?
Yeah, he turned into Bryce Sandler pretty much. So Bryce Sandler had a bit of a clanger, decided to punch the ball into young defender Tom Holmes's head as he was attacking it. The ball was then looped up over Samba. Tom Holmes is following it in, and Yates has then decided to punch the ball off the line. A very strange decision to do that in the 15th minute. Quite frankly, when the game was 0-0 as well, he's just hampered his team a bit more, and it did really give Reading a nice scruff on the game. One thing that I would like to point, I know we've spoken quite negatively a lot about things, and I know I am picking something else up on Reading. They had rainbow-coloured nets up for this game, obviously this being the weekend relegation to support the LGBTQ plus community. The sponsor was changed from the normal kind of purpley font on the home kit, put in a rainbow font. And sponsors Casumo actually made a gesture in this game where they said that they would donate £100 to involve it to various charities that look at community involvement. For every goal that Reading scored, and then for every pass that Reading completed in that game, they would also donate, I believe it was an extra £10. In that game, they managed to rack up a sum of nearly £5,500. So either Ryan Yates was trying to turn into a goalkeeper, or he just wanted a lot of money to be donated to charity. Either way,
helps Reading
out for Reading to take from that game.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, good win.
Move on, and we'll talk about your team next.
Yeah, we're going to Norwich versus Sheffield Wednesday. Sheffield Wednesday took the lead in this game in just on the hour mark with a cross coming from Adam reaching Josh Windas's head. A beautiful cross and a beautiful header as well. Yeah,
that was a poor pun.
Yeah, all right.
Don't quit the day job, mate.
Don't quit the day job. Yeah, Reach's cross reaching Windas's head if we all missed that. But anyway,
don't repeat it.
Sorry. Just I'm killing the joke now. Just like Norwich killed off the game actually. So come the 80th minute with 10 minutes left to go, Mario Vrancic turns into prime Andrea Pirlo. Some would say he's better than Pirlo. I
don't think anyone has ever said that apart from you.
No, but no, Mario
you're the first and probably the last person to say that.
Yeah, Mario Vrancic was absolutely instrumental for both goals, getting two incredible assists. The first being a lovely cut-free pass through the legs of a Sheffield Wednesday defender, feeding in 18-year-old Josh Martin to get his first professional goal for Norwich City. Really interesting how Josh Martin has grown up. Of last year, scoring a hat-trick for the under-18s in the FA Youth Cup, and now he's scoring goals in the first team for Norwich. So big step up for him. And then on to the Max Aaron's goal. Max Aaron's some lovely footwork down the right-hand side, feeding it down the line to Mario Vrancic, who nicely backheels it back into the path of Max Aaron's, who finishes it off. A very, very nice give and go there, and gave Norwich all 3 points. And one thing that Daniel Farker did say regarding fans, those 2,000 fans there stirred them on to victory. And we then just see how important fans are at football to steer on teams to get wins. But anyway, we'll move on to the next game.
Yeah, so I've got that one as Blackburn, 10-man Blackburn getting a point away from home at Brentford. Ivan Toney found himself on the score sheet again after a penalty was awarded for a last man tackle from Dara Lehman. Blackburn went 1-0 up in this game. They then obviously suffered the setback of the red card, went 1-0 down. They conceded a goal from a resulting penalty. It was 1-0, my apologies. They then went 2-1 up, did Brentford in this game. They made 4 substitutions, not too long after the goal, and then conceded a late equaliser from Jacob Davenport. Realistically, Blackburn have done very well to get something out of this game, considering they had 2 shots on target and were reduced to 10 men very early on. This isn't quite the Brentford that we're used to seeing, but nonetheless, Blackburn have proven they could score goals, so it might have been expected by some. I'll let you move on and talk about the next game, which
Yes, and the
I've got
next
as
game.
Huddersfield against QPR.
Wow, shock, sir. Right. And I think the main highlight is this is one of the goals in this game from Karoma in the third minute. Bit of a solo, he's just running up the pitch, solo effort sort of thing. And you think maybe he's going to pass it off to another player. No, from 25 yards out, he curls it into the top corner so effortlessly. And it really is a beautiful goal. And one of the goals of the season contenders so far. And another bit.
Completely agree, yeah.
Another bit of Karoma gets an assist as well in this game. So it'll be really interesting to see how he does for Huddersfield now. But
he's
again,
a player to watch now, I think.
He is, but
definitely a player to watch.
For Huddersfield's perspective, it's very, very odd. They lose 3-0 midweek, and now they've gone 1-2-0 against QPR. Obviously, QPR we have previously spoken about, they are struggling, but you'd expect a bit more of a fight from QPR. But don't take anything away from Huddersfield. Their inconsistency does continue, but it is a win. And could this put them onto maybe a bit of a run of form potentially? Harry Toffolo getting the other goal as well. Defender does like to chip in with a few goals. But yeah.
I mean, it was an interesting one, a result from two teams that seem to be evenly matched in terms of league position so far, and on the whole, probably an unexpected result after seeing Huddersfield get absolutely trounced in midweek. But moving on to the next game, another so-called shock result. I wouldn't really say it's a shock based on the form that Cardiff are in, but looking at Watford and how good they have proven that they can be, especially with the quality they have on the pitch, slumping to a 1-0 home defeat, especially with fans in. Quite surprising to see, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was surprising to see. Keith Moore obviously popping up with the goal again. But with Watford having fans back, you expect a bit more fight, side topping the table at the minute. But then at the same time, we're looking at this Cardiff side, and we've said they're the most informed team in the Championship at the minute. 9 points from 9, 8 goals scored, 0 conceded. They really are proving to be a side to be feared. And Keith Moore, again, proving the point that I said about him earlier, being probably one of the most prolific strikers in the Championship at this moment of time, alongside Ivan Toney. But yeah, really, really looking forward to seeing what Cardiff can do this season. Obviously, beating one of the top teams in Watford, could they maybe, fly up the league, fly up the table? It'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it already, and it's a very big possibility. And quite frankly, if I was a Cardiff City fan, I'd be loving life. And if I was a Stoke City fan, I would be fearing what Cardiff might be doing to them come the midweek round of fixtures. But talking of Stoke City, let's have a look at what they had for their result at the weekend. They managed to beat Middlesbrough 1-0 at home. What did you make of that one, Doeke?
Yeah, big win for Stoke, and I think Stoke are really looking on to carry on that form. To beat Wycombe midweek and now beat Middlesbrough 2-1-0 victories. Very, very, very Stoke thing to do, get the 1-0 wins. But are they turning themselves around? Obviously, we're seeing them finish mid-table. The past 2 seasons they've been in the Championship. Are they now starting to move up the table? Obviously, they're in the playoffs now, and are they being Stoke that we expected when they first came down to the Championship? But a funny thing about this game was Neil Warnock's comment on the away changing room. I think that loss really did rattle him as he was going on about the state of the away changing room was in with flooded toilets, a flooded changing room. Obviously, probably a disgusting sight as it is, what you probably wouldn't expect from a Championship changing room. But however, you can't put that as the reason why Middlesbrough lost. They lost because they weren't the better team in the game, and Stoke were, and Stoke got all 3 points.
Yeah, I mean, it was never really going to be a goal fest in this one, I don't think. I think you predicted this one to be a 0-0.
Brexit football, mate, that's why.
On the whole, yeah, a fairly kind of mellow game, so to speak. Not a lot going on really, but the one thing to take from this is Stoke have held themselves into the playoff positions. Moving on then from Stoke against Middlesbrough.
Final game.
What have you got as the next game? Yes, it is the final game.
Final game, and it's Swansea versus Luton. And in this game, Swansea scored very early on and then scored very late on. There was also a red card for Pearson for Luton in the 70th minute. Roberts coming up with a goal in the first 2 minutes of the game for Swansea, which are kind of put the record of things in the game. Under are you getting the assist for that and also scoring later on? So he was obviously a key player in this game, but kind of put a record on. They scored early on, and I think from then on in, all they had to do was defend. And obviously Luton we have sung Luton's praises, but we also have to admit they haven't got the greatest quality after going behind in games.
Not compared to the likes of Swansea. I mean, realistically, we've spoken about this personally before. Andre Ayew is a very, very good player. That's just 100%. To highlight one of that squad. He is, quite frankly, not a championship player. You've got to look at him and say he could still be doing a job in the Premier League. And he's proven that in this game. He's got a goal and an assist. Obviously, as Swansea ran out 2 winners at home. Luton did have their fair share of chances, I would say, in this game. They did also hit the woodwork. It's one of them that they've kind of they've got to look at it and go, right, okay, yes, we've proven that we can do results like this before, obviously picking up all 3 points at Norwich. They have had quite a tough run of games of late, obviously playing both the Welsh sides in Cardiff and Swansea, sandwiching that Norwich game that they won.
I think getting 3 points from 9 is actually not too bad for them. And I think they'll be very, very pleased with that. Again, if they got 0,
they'll be disappointed in the way that they've kind of dominated for periods of the Swansea game. However, ultimately, if you'd look at the way that people would have imagined those games to be panned out, it might have been very different to how it ultimately did turn out. 100%. And quite frankly, that's quite a nice way to wrap up the weekend's fixtures. And obviously, I think we are heading into a very busy.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you one thing, Josh. Instead of doing the predictions, I want to say, tell me one thing that you think is going to happen over these next 2 game weeks. Just one thing.
One thing I think that's going to happen. I think, let me have a look at what games we've got coming up. So obviously we've got midweek games and we've got some weekend games, some quite notable ties. I think that, what do I think is going to happen? You're not going to be top of the league next time we speak. That's what I think is going to happen. Now, I'm going to say something quite interesting. I think Wycombe Wanderers are going to win a game by a 3-goal margin.
Do you know what I'm going to think? Do you know what I'm going to think?
What do you reckon is going to happen?
I think that Coventry City will get, they'll win this weekend that we just covered. They will have won midweek, and they'll win at the weekend as well. They have 9 points from 9. That's what I'm going to say. But then again,
controversial. I've said that I think that Wycombe are going to win a game by a 3-goal margin,
and they also play Coventry.
One of Wycombe's games is actually against Coventry. Exactly. Let's see what comes of that. But we're going to leave the predictions for this week. We've been talking a lot for a long time, but I think midweek there was a lot that we needed to cover
100%.
For this one. But that has obviously been this week's episode of the podcast. Thank you very much again, Doeke, for joining me on this one, as much as it is probably more me joining you. But nonetheless, as you kind of explained at the start, this is going to be our setting for the next kind of few weeks. We'll try and do whatever we can. Obviously, there's some very interesting games coming up. I can't wait to finally get back to a football game. And obviously, I'm very much enjoying the fact that people can start playing football again. But kind of away from the football side of things, and just to talk, I was going to just talk about the channel, but I'll let you talk before I keep rambling on.
Oh no, sorry. I thought you finished talking. That's all.
No, I was on a roll, mate. You've interrupted my flow.
Sorry, do you want me to carry on do you want me to do my role or not? Or then
go on, you spiel it off, and we'll end this off.
All right, so guys, if you have enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel. Please drop a like. Please drop a comment on what you think we should talk about in next week's podcast. Also, don't remember, as Eden always says, to tickle the notification bell, and also go follow our socials. And give us a follow on there. And if you have enjoyed this podcast, great. Leave a like and subscribe. Anyway, cheers, Josh.
Thank you very much, Doeke. And like he said, I'll echo everything he said. We'd love to hear from people. So if you do fancy getting involved and letting us know what you think, please do. And any feedback is really appreciated, because we want to make this as enjoyable for everyone as possible. As much as we love talking about football, we want to make it enjoyable for people to listen to. But like we said, that's the end of this podcast. So I will see you next week.